Hey, Pastor Josh here, kind of at a special location. I'm here with two people who really did something that's very important in my life, and it just took a little bit of their time, but this story goes to prove that even one word spoken at the right time, like Proverbs says, is like golden apples in the settings of gold. It's just beautiful and a powerful thing, and it goes to show the power of our words and how much our words can mean and how much it means to be obedient to God and how He uses that. So Greg and Brenda here, and this is a blast from the past for me because 20 years ago Brenda was serving tables at a restaurant called Quincy's alongside with me. And so this is the first time we've seen each other in probably 20 years or so. And so it's been really neat to be able to catch up over this Thanksgiving break with her. And it's something that I've wanted to do for a long time and kind of talk over this story and record this actual story, which again is just a huge part of my life. And so I can't thank them enough for allowing God to use them. So thank you for letting us into your home. And this is just a huge deal for me. I'm very sentimental, so this is huge. And I want to lead back. I want to start back. I'm from Wiggins. I'm in college and I'm waiting tables at Quincy's. You had been there off and on for a while.
Right.
And at this particular point, let's just start back. You were working for the police department.
Right. I was a police clerk.
Police clerk. And you were going to do just a couple of days a week waitressing at Quincy's.
Right.
I think, what was it, Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays?
Right. I did Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and sometimes I'd come in on Sundays because they would need help. And I like to wait tables. I love people. I love to help people. I love to talk to people. And so waiting tables was my life
natural.
At that point, yeah. And when I left, I had left there, and then I came back. And I think that was when you were there that time when I came back.
So again, first off, this from a biblical standpoint goes into prove there's no such thing with God as coincidence, but divine appointment. The book of Acts is chock full of those examples. But God's still working in the same way that He puts His people in various times and various situations so that they would be able to minister. So getting back to this, again, I'm in community college. I'm on college scholarship at the point where we had met, and I'm kind of going down some bad paths, some wrong paths. I don't know how much you knew about it. I wasn't, you probably wouldn't have considered me necessarily a bad kid, but I was going in some directions I didn't need to go in.
Right.
I had a very big unrest in my life. Fast forward to one particular night. It was a Friday, which is a big rush. That's a big money night. And Brenda worked on the non-smoking side, and I worked on the smoking side the majority of the time. And I believe that was the case this night. I had a girlfriend at Quincy's at the time, and she and I would always try to go on break together. But this particular night, for whatever reason, we were not able to go on break together, and Brenda got put on break with me. Now, I knew Brenda enough I would have hugged her when I saw her. I mean, we would joke, kid around, we hung out, we were cool. But it's not like I told her my deepest, darkest secrets at this point. I'm going to shoot from what I remember, and you help me fill in the blanks maybe between the two of us. We'll get part of the story. Friday night rush, we're eating, and I had just really been struggling with spiritual stuff, not even understanding what was going on. Didn't feel like I had anybody I could talk this over with, and just really, really struggling. Brenda, she sees me. I'm sitting there with a plate of food. I remember it. And I got the fork, and I'm just I wasn't even eating a lot yet. Brenda stops what she's doing, and we had to move really quick because we wanted to get back on the floor and make the money. But she puts her fork or whatever down, reaches across, puts her hand on top of mine, and she says, if you'll just give whatever it is to God,
Exactly.
He's going to take care of this. If you'll just listen to Him, everything's going to be okay. That's all she said at this particular moment. I remember I cried, And I don't even think, I think I was speechless at that moment. I don't think I even said anything because I didn't know that I didn't know anybody else knew that this was going on in my life. So let's backtrack to that night.
But you say that you didn't know that anybody else knew, but God knew.
Absolutely.
And God told me that you needed that. He put me in that path. He put me there on break with you. He stopped the other one from coming to break with you.
Yep.
Because he knew that you needed something from him.
At that point, I believed in God.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe anybody else knew me. And I didn't believe anybody else would have noticed me. And so, to a degree, even though I believed in God, again, at this point, I wasn't necessarily living for him, but I didn't know that he would be involved.
Right.
Obviously, he was.
Right.
Okay. Well, I want us just to backtrack to that night. We're sitting there. We go on break. I would have done anything for it to hurt your feelings. It wasn't like I didn't want to go on break with you, but when you're dating, that's
right.
That's what you're thinking. But let's go back to that particular moment or that particular night. We sit down. It's noisy. It's chaotic. It's Friday night in Quincy's. What was it that made you say that? What happened? Just talk me through what happened.
I don't know. I think it was that God knew that you needed it to start off with. I was always willing to listen. I had talked to you before. We had talked in the past, and you never came out and said a whole lot, but you just had that. You gave me the impression that you needed God in your life, and you had told me that you believed in God, but there was more to it, and when God speaks to somebody, when God tells you, like you being a pastor, he tells you what message to preach. He tells you where he wants you to go. And that particular night, I believe that God told me that you needed to talk and that you needed prayer.
It wasn't like I was running around crying.
No.
I mean, I want to get this straight now. For you to understand this, you have to understand I was walking around. This was big money night. From all intents and purposes, if you saw me, I was happy as a clam.
Mm-hmm.
But God allowed Brenda to know this, so that this proves another point too. By the way, there are ministry opportunities all around us that if we just pay attention,
You're right. You're right.
And we don't see them.
And if you use it.
So what? At the time, I was 18. And what did you know or what didn't you know? Because I don't know. It's like you spoke into my soul, but I don't know what you knew or what you didn't know. I mean, obviously we had talked. You knew. I told you that I was saved. I told you I was born again. But I don't think I told you anything else necessarily spiritual.
Well,
what did you know?
I like people. I love to talk to people. I love to listen to people. I'm a people watcher. I can see things in people where they may need to talk, or they just may need somebody to listen and keep their mouth shut.
Did you train in this? Did you?
No.
Is it God-given gift?
It's God-given gift.
Wow. Okay.
So
God still gives gifts.
Yeah. And God can use anybody.
Mm-hmm.
He can use your kids. They watch what Dad does. They watch what Mom does. And if they see something, if there's a problem, and they sense that, then they can help you. Mm-hmm. They can help people. And like I said, I'm a people person. I love to listen to people. I'll stand there all day and let you cry on my shoulder. You can talk my ear off. And if it's to the point that I think God has led me to talk to you or to pray with you, then I'll do it. And that's that night when we were sitting there talking, and there was something wrong. I could sense that there was something wrong.
I didn't even know. I could not have told you what was wrong. I didn't know what was wrong until you broke that ice. God used that as my break.
Right.
Some people talk about their breaking point, or they hit rock bottom. They found themselves in a sewer drain, or they found themselves strung out, or they didn't know how they got where they got. My bottom out was never there. God was so full of grace and mercy to me that I didn't have to experience anything close to that. But my rock bottom, my breaking point though, was really at the top of the world. I mean, I'm going to college on scholarship. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life at Quincy's. Things were going good. I had a girlfriend. I always had a self-esteem issue, but I had a girlfriend there, so I that gave me some kind of a boost, I thought I was something. Had a really cool truck. I mean, all these things, if you looked at my life, it was great times, but something was wrong, and I could not put my finger on what it was. And I'll be honest with you, I did not feel like I had a person in my life on a spiritual level that I could go to and have this conversation. Because so many times I've seen pastors talk with somebody like that, and they try to talk them into that they weren't saved or something like that. And I knew that wasn't the case.
Right.
I knew that I was born again. I knew that.
We had talked several times about that.
I just knew that. But I've seen them try to almost kind of talk them into, if you're really saved, you wouldn't be this uneasy or whatever. But I didn't know what it was, and I can't put an emphasis on that enough. I didn't know exactly what was going on. So number one, find somebody godly that will speak into your life truth, but will do so out of love. A lot of people will speak truth, but they have no love to give behind it. And another thing is, it's not about how many words you can speak. I would say, because what you said was just so brief and it was over. It was, if you'll just give this to God, everything's going to be okay. Now, I will say this, and this is the power, but be really, there's something I want to talk to you about, but you can take this in the wrong way, and I don't want anybody watching this to do it. But the power of touch. What she did was, I'm looking down at my food. She stops and reaches across my hand. Now, it's dangerous because I had a fork in my hand and I was hungry. That was the first time. But second, the power of human touch.
Yeah.
We overlook the power of a hug, and not in a wrong sense. Don't violate this or don't put yourself in a bad situation. But even just holding somebody's hand, she reached across and she held my hand, and at that point, it felt like somebody was covering. And I don't know how else to say it than that. Felt like you covered me for a minute with some love, and for the first time in a while, I had something to go off of.
Right.
You're probably thinking, hey, I just said something to a kid. But to me, that moment's huge. And obviously now being in ministry over 21 years now, thank God for every bit of it. Spiritual stuff can be confusing when you're not hearing from God clearly.
Yes.
And
a lot of people will do that. They will hear what they think came from God, but it's actually what they wanted to hear.
Sure.
It's not from God. And if you're not careful, you'll get in a mess like that.
I thought, and I did talk with a pastor later on that I would work under, that was coming in the restaurant at that time. He would be the second pastor that I would work with. But I remember after you and I had that talk, within a week of that, I think it was the next weekend, he came in and I said, I'm really struggling with something. He must have picked up on it too. And he said, so what is it? And I told him, I said, I feel like God's calling me to do something, but I can't tell if it's God that's calling me to do this or if Satan is putting it in my head because he knows I'll mess everything up. And he looked at me and said, again, very simple. It was a dumb moment in my life, but wow. Went to that next level. He said, Satan is never going to call you to do what God wants you to do.
Right.
So that narrows it down for you. So God worked that out the next weekend. Then the next weekend, I met the first pastor I was going to work under as a youth guy.
Uh-huh.
So going back to that particular night, did you stop and pray or anything before you said anything, or did you just know, or did you just feel God was going to take over? What was it?
I think God had control of that night, and I think he just led me to you or you to me, however you want to look at it. And he says he needs some help. He needs some love. And I want you to direct him. I want you to talk to him. And he gave me the words to say to you that night. It was not my words. It was, and I believe I probably said something to you that pray about it. God will lead you. Let God
did.
guide you
You
in
did.
your decision. And that's always true. Don't just assume that you know what God wants. Pray about it. Let him guide you. Let him lead you to where you want to go. Or where he wants you to go, I'm sorry. And make sure that he's in it. That night, that's probably basically what I told you that night, was let God lead you and show you where he wants you and what he wants you to do.
But I had no clue at that point what we were even talking. I didn't disagree with you.
Right.
I'd been in church all my life. I didn't disagree, but I didn't know what that meant.
Well, there was a few other nights there at Quincy's, and I remember that we had talked about salvation, about God, and how God would lead us in what he wanted us to do. And I guess that particular night, I felt that you were struggling with something. And so God told me, he needs some love. I need you to pray with him. And it's hard to describe. I mean, God will lead that special person in your life that you need at that point. And he's going to get them. He's going to tell them what they need to tell you. It's nothing that I said, and I can't stress enough that if it doesn't feel it's coming from God, then don't listen to him. But I was very much into trying to. I like to help people, and so that night, there's just something that I felt about you that you needed some prayer, some guidance, and that's what God led me to do. I mean, it was not. I didn't go back there with you to take a break and say, okay, we're going to talk about this, or I'm going to tell him about God or whatever.
There was not a intentional. I mean, yeah,
Right.
We had talked, so you had an open door to talk to me,
Right.
and even on a spiritual level,
Right.
Which, to be honest with you, our surroundings there not meant anything bad, but it was not a very spiritual
Right.
atmosphere to be honest. We had church groups that would come in, some that we would wait on their tables, but there wasn't a lot of spiritual talk that took place
Right.
amongst the employees and stuff like that. That wasn't a normal conversation. But when you came in, that had opened that door up. And again, my confusion at that point, I didn't understand what was happening. And I didn't understand because I knew that God was giving me an uneasiness, a lack of peace. But I had no clue why, because like I told you, I had given my life to Christ. I was
Right.
born again. There was not a doubt in my mind about that part of it. But why is God still messing with me? Why is he still after me? Why is he still trying to get my attention? And the neat thing to me is that what you would have known about that or not known about it was inconsequential. God just said a few words through you.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you got somebody turned around here, and within a month it's going to start his first ministry position.
Right.
So
God leads that special person to you to guide you, to be able to tell you what he wants you to hear. And if you don't take that to heed, then he's going to keep finding somebody that can do that.
I don't remember how long you worked after that.
I'm not sure.
I don't think it was that long.
Lester's had, it's probably not very long because we were in the military and I was here and there and I think, let's see, I was still working at the police department at that point.
Yeah.
So it probably wasn't long. And
Well,
then I became the church secretary at Temple.
Then, and I'm trying to remember, I went on for a little while because it was a volunteer youth minister position, and so I continued to work there for a while. I just didn't work on Sundays or Wednesdays so that I could work at the church, and then I would go into full-time ministry after leaving that position. So I'm guessing within a year, again, I was gone. But God put the timing just perfectly and just right together at the right time. Galatians talks about this in reflecting on the Messiah coming. But when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth a Son, born of a virgin, born under the law, that he could redeem those who were under the law. So there's something about God has a specific timing too. But I have been guilty of this in my ministry. I don't have the right words, saying I don't have the right words. But you have been proof to me through this, what God did, that there was not, it wasn't necessarily the perfect word. It was nothing about magical words or anything. It was God using you.
Right. And if you'll let God use you, you'd be surprised at how, and that's like, and I have to say this, the night that you contacted me and said, I don't know if you remember me or not, and we went through the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at him and I said, I helped somebody. And it's always amazing to see what you've done in people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, he said that I helped him, that I encouraged him. And he says, well, God put you there. And if you'll just let that special person come in and help it may be just that one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Reach over and touch you and say, God, give it to God. God will tell you. And I couldn't tell you how I have felt, I guess is for lack of words, since that night that you texted me and told me. And I thought, I didn't do a whole lot, but evidently I did just the right thing.
Oh yeah, you did.
And it's, you never know who's watching you. Everybody's watching you. You don't know who is listening to you. You've got to be God's testimony all the time.
Well,
not just now and then.
I've run into so many times in trying to disciple people or help equip them or even encourage them. Well, I'm not a pastor. Let me explain something to you. Brenda was not a pastor. Well, I'm not great with words. Brenda said nothing elegant here. Well, I'm not. So in other words, it's kind of like Moses. We can make a lot of excuses as to why we shouldn't go to Pharaoh, but the truth of it is, God says go, we need to be obedient.
Right.
He's going to take care of the rest of it.
Right.
This was further proof of that. This is a real life situation that happened that I can tell you. God set everything up by divine appointment. God gave the words. God by his Holy Spirit dealt in my life and worked in me. And then God opened the door up to show me what to do afterwards.
Right.
He says in his word, be anxious for nothing, but with everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. Right. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. And exactly what needed to happen for me was that peace.
Right.
And also that explanation of what you want me to do.
Right.
And I remember telling God at some point right around in this, and I don't remember, it was right before, I think it was right after this. God, I don't care what you want me to do, just tell me what you want me to do.
Right.
I'm tired of you wrestling with me kind of thing. I tap, but tell me what to do here, because I'm just tapping.
Actually, what it comes back to is you knew what God wanted you to do.
Yeah.
And Satan was messing with you going, you don't want to do that.
Well, who's the author of confusion?
Yeah. Satan.
you got to look at that and say that he had his hand in the whole thing
Right.
too. And by the way, for a young man, for an 18-year-old, felt like I was being offered the world through everything else.
Right. And that's what Satan wanted you to think. You've got everything that you need. You don't need God.
So I was good
You don't need,
on paper.
I'm good. I've got a truck. I've got a girlfriend. I got a job. Hey, I'm going to school. Hey, I'm fine. But
There
God
was
says, no,
nothing
that's
else.
not it. You're not fine. You're not where I want you. You're not doing what I want you to do. And this is what I want you to do. And, like I said at the beginning, God sent me there. It was nothing that I did.
I may be wrong about this. I'm not trying to get in your personal business, but I could swear that I remember when I met you and they were bringing you in, and I was asking, I think Bill or somebody said, do I need to train her or do we need to train her or whatever? And they said, oh no, she's been here long before you, kind of thing. And I could have swore you said something about you weren't even really there for the money. You didn't even have to have the money or something.
I think at that time it was just because.
Well,
think
and it could have been.
It had something to do to get you away from the kids.
It could have been one of the managers that told me that maybe, but I have that some way or another in my memory that it wasn't even the thing about the money. It was just you were going to do this a little bit to do it,
Just for fun.
and
it goes back to, I like people. I like
okay.
being able to
Well,
talk to
that
people.
would make sense then.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to get in your personal, like your bills or
Okay.
anything like that, but the point that I was making there was I had it in my mind some way or another that it wasn't, this wasn't something you had to do. It was, again, God orchestrated the whole thing.
Exactly.
If nothing else, that one moment, that one night, God put all
Right.
that together. And I wouldn't be surprised if we got to heaven and he told us that's the only reason you're waiting tables again.
Exactly.
And that's totally cool. So, but I appreciate you answering that message and appreciate you inviting us into your home.
I've
And
enjoyed having you and your family.
I appreciate you knowing that I wasn't being kooky. Okay, I was so hesitant when sending a message. I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to report me and think I'm Charles Manson reincarnated or something, But no, I appreciate you and Greg having us in. And Greg, I had met you a couple of times at Quincy's, but they're both serving in their church now. We were discussing this over dinner. Greg works a lot with the technology in the technology department in his church now. They're faithful attenders and faithfully serving to this day. So God's using all of us, which is really cool.
Yes.
And so that's part of the family of God thing. She didn't just do what she had to do and God was through with her. God's continued. And by the way, if you tried her cooking, you would know that God's blessing her. So that was really cool. But thank y'all again for everything. I'll always appreciate you for just those couple of sentences. Made all the difference in my life. And, I'm not going to say I would not be here because I believe God has his way of doing things.
Right.
But I also believe that my rock bottom was not as bad as it would have had to have been because God allowed you in that Friday night. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean that.
I'm glad that God allowed me to be a part of that. I
am too.
I just, there's no words. There's no words, but just keep in and let God guide you and lead you wherever he needs you and wants you to be, and continue doing his work, because if not, then he's gonna get your attention one way or the other. And some of the ways that he's going to get your attention, you're not going to like.
Some of it's tough.
Yeah.
It is. And again, what I keep going back to this, the rock bottom that I hit was not bad at all. God was so merciful and so gracious. But even then, I was so at unrest.
Yeah.
And it was so miserable.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Listen, if God's calling you to do something, learn from this example right here. Don't wait until you've hit that rock bottom. Don't wait until things are at their very worst. Stop it before that starts. What God has for you is so much better than anything else you'll find on this earth. You'll never find a drug that's going to get you as high.
No.
You'll never find a bottle that's going to take away as much pain. You'll
to
never
really
find
get
more
through.
purpose in any other field of activity whatsoever. And when it comes down to it, you'll never find someone who will love you and care for you and who will have a purpose for your life like Jesus Christ. So again, Greg, Brenda, thank you. I will love you guys always for this. And I hope that this has been a blessing to you in whatever way God uses it.